also another thing I would say is someone like Daniel would fit the kind of symbol I would call the scapegoat, right? And we all have, most families have a scapegoat, and we know the scapegoats just by looking at them, not really looking at them, talking to them, but also looking at their birth charts. You'll always find, especially in the most straight-laced religious families, there's always going to be that one person who's not as straight-laced, who's not as religious. They will either be the defrocked priest, a serial criminal, either an addict, someone who's committed at some point. So a lot of these people are dealing with pain of an entire lineage. And that's why they have to self-medicate.
Why are we calling them scapegoats?
They're scapegoats because I say the scapegoats.
Who is scapegoating?
There's two things. There's scapegoat and sacrificial lambs. So scapegoat is the one who bears the weight of that particular issue or that particular vice. So that if it's addiction, the scapegoat is the one who carries it. So the scapegoat is the one that is dealing with alcoholism, the one that is dealing with either a total criminal, and if you look at the context of their family, it's the opposite. Their parents are basically even pastors, you might find. So that's why I'm calling them scapegoats. So it is not necessarily a bad term. But now it becomes negative when the scapegoat becomes a sacrificial lamb. Unfortunately, some of these ancestral curses will claim a sacrifice, isn't it? So in a way to resolve itself. So we'll see the kind of alcoholic that runs themselves completely into the ground.
It's interesting because I don't know if you know about this, that is usually said in our culture, in Luo culture, that have you not heard that?
I've not heard it, but it's
You've not heard that?
I've not heard that.
No, I think the people, for you who understands it, you understand it as a scapegoat.
Yeah.
The guy who carries the burden.
Yeah, for the family. Yes.
But a lot of people see somebody whose life has really gone astray, and especially when the family is doing well. And it's like a charlatan.
Yeah.
He's looking like a street kid. They will say that one is the guy who has brought wealth into the family. He's the one who has been sacrificed.
Then that is a very astute statement. Very true and very true. It's very astute, but the reason I'm saying that he's the one who's brought wealth is because he's the sacrifice. So that for this family to stay as is, there's always that. That's why I'm talking about the scapegoat.
Oh, I see.
Because if there's a curse in that lineage, it has to be expressed in one way or the other. And it has to claim somebody in one way or another. So it is possible, that's why I even say it is possible to be a scapegoat without becoming a sacrificial lamb, which is what I keep impressing on, especially people struggling with alcoholism.
So it might be the case, but it is not the doing of the parents.
Yeah, it's not even, sometimes it's not even your parents, because your parents are also dealing with it in terms of a lineage thing, a lineage issue. If I'm an alcoholic, say, and my father is an alcoholic, then my father's alcoholism is also coming from another side of his lineage, probably his father or his mother's side, and on in perpetuity. But I am also talking about the kind of alcoholism that claims the individual totally and completely. Because then when you become conscious of some of these curses that are running through your family, and this is why I insist that everyone must draw up a family tree. It's important because it also helps us to understand the traits of these people, and what were their eccentricities and whatnot. What were the things that they were dealing with? Then you're able to pick it up. So for me, for instance, Jagero, I would say I'm also a scapegoat.
In your family?
I'm also a scapegoat, yes.
How? Tell me why.
Remember how I mentioned that how me and my mother and my grandmother share certain imprints, right? And that imprint is very spiritual. So these were very spiritual women. But you see, their spirituality, because of the environment they were growing up in, was Christian. So they could only express their deep spirituality in a Christian way. But then here comes me, named after my grandmother, no less. So that means I am still dealing with the kind of deep spirituality that has been running through that lineage, but has been suppressed. So what then happens? It explodes. It means that the spirits, and remember how I mentioned in the last talk, it hit me in such a way that I almost went down. I needed to come back and become very, very conscious, very, very quickly, because if I hadn't done so, I would have been a sacrificial lamb. my spirituality would have been playing out in a very different way. And we have seen it. And sometimes also this really deep spirituality where it is claiming a scapegoat shows up as witchcraft or sorcery, right?
It's very interesting because I think sometimes also we don't understand the people that have been scapegoated by the cosmos. In the sense that a lot of people look at them and say that, why we took you to the best school, we did this to you, we were always here for you. I mean, we can be able to afford, Alcohol Anonymous. We can take you there.
Yeah.
We have given you, for example, yesterday, when we were going to pick the equipment, and one of our friends was really struggling with his brother, was completely gone astray. So he was given a house to live in because he can't get his own house. He was given a shop, like everything put in that shop. His was just to run it and then sell and then use the money that he sold to restock. And he's not able to do that. And I remember the guy was he doesn't understand. Why can't you work your hands like we do? So sometimes I feel like if we understood these people, where they are coming from, what the weight that is on their shoulders, then I feel like we can start treating them with a little bit of love.
Absolutely. And empathy. Empathy. Because a lot of these people, we tend to ostracize them and then we now re-scapegoat them because they're like, that guy is just, they've lost it, don't even worry about them. So we dismiss them. We almost make the whole situation worse because of how we are dealing with the situation. So I'm usually just trying to raise that awareness, even with my own clients, where I see there's a little bit of, there's an issue here, or there's somebody within the family who carries that trait, just to bring it to their attention that this is what you're dealing with. And this person actually is the one who has taken that sacrifice on behalf of the family. So even for me, I'm able to stand and speak about these things because I've gone through them. Because now I realize that because I'm the scapegoat, I'm in charge of how this energy is manifesting in my life and in my family's life. In some ways, I have managed to harmonize the two. What my mother and my grandmother were doing as Christian women, and what I'm doing as somebody who's in African spirituality, and be able to somehow merge those two without creating any kind of conflict. And I can say so far so good. It's worked so well. I would say my family has been so supportive. So I would say in that way I'm privileged. There are others who are not as privileged, especially those who are now awakening and are waking up to their own spiritual abilities. Many of them are not being accepted in their families. So I'm quite blessed to have been able to do the work such that my family now is accepting of me.
Okay.
It's important to always bring an empathic eye to some of these individuals. And also I feel like it is important to, much as we are doing the work with the rehabilitation, there has to also be a spiritual element to it. And I think this is how we were doing it even in the old days, where somebody who's dealing with either a mental issue or a vice, there would be a two-pronged approach. So much as there's psychological, but there's also spiritual. So I feel like we have to get to a point where we can merge some of these healing modalities. Yeah.
All right.
So that's
yes, but I want to ask you a question before you go to the other topic.
Okay.
How do you deal with if somebody is bearing the burden of the family, has been scapegoated by the cosmos? Do we say that, okay, he's a gone case, he's afflicted, there is nothing we can do, let him stay in the streets, let him die of alcohol, he's the reason why we are driving big cars, he's the reason why we built a good house, he's the reason why we are doing well and we are healthy?
Not at all.
What happens?
Yeah, not at all. So I would say, back to that statement, I think the statement is more, the Luo statement is more of what I call a cryptosemantics. And that is a hidden gem within a statement or a proverb. So I can definitely see what the hidden gems are under that, because it understands and appreciates that the family is able to exist because somebody is bearing the weight of their shadows, the collective shadows. So I'll definitely say this person needs, first of all, psychological assistance or support. So they need to be able to sit down and be able to go through and appreciate what's going on, not just in their own lives, but their family's lives. So there's a psychological approach to that. but there's also the spiritual approach. Now, this is where a lot of people or a lot of families would not even want to do it, because then they would imagine these are now the devilish things.
Yes.
But I would definitely
Tumempeleka kwa mganga.
kwa mganga. But again, mganga is important because mganga is a healer. Mganga is a healer. Chawi is a sorcerer. So there's a difference. So, and that's why the same thing with the Ajuoke, who are healers. I know it's like they're very rare right now and few and far between that are genuine, but
they've been ostracized, man.
Yes.
People don't want to hear about them.
Yes, that's why they have disappeared. You really will not hear about them out here. Much as we're in the digital age, many of the traditional healers are still in that world where it's for you to look for me, not necessarily.
And when I was researching some of the topics that we were supposed to discuss with you, I googled the healers, and I came across so many websites that have no face. They don't put their faces.
Yes, and in fact they don't put any kind of their likeness, because again, there are so many principles, and remember, there's the traditional worldview, and now there's the modern worldview. The traditional worldview is a bit more very cautious, because we understand that we live in a world where not everyone is for what you're doing. Not everyone is going to look at you as a positive influence, and they also understand the power of projection.
I like the word positive influence.
Exactly. So when they see you, for instance, Jagger, if we just put a Sisal cut on you right now, the way you're looking, there's a projection people will put on you, will place on you, and then they will treat you according to that projection, whether it's positive or negative. But for the most part, it's probably going to be with suspicion, isn't it? So a lot of them really don't want to deal with that. They want to focus on their craft, on what they are doing. And I would see that, because even for me, much as I'm on the modern side of things, I also struggle with just putting myself out there with the likeness, much as, am I going to do a reel, or am I going to do a TikTok? We understand that there's so much energy out there that you need to preserve your energy. Let people come to your office or come to, where you're set up, but as opposed to the other way around. You're using too much energy. And also we understand that there are people who might, because of that, they might, what can I call it? It's called, what can I call it? Spiritually speaking, is it the evil eye? The easiest way I can put it is the evil eye. Okay, so you don't want somebody to sort of latch on to you. We understand as practitioners that people can take up our energy and we can be left with nothing. Okay, so if I sit here, in some ways people are consuming what I'm saying. From where I'm sitting, as somebody who deals with energy, that already drains me of enough energy. Leave alone sitting down with a client. Sitting down with a client, I'll have drained some of my energy as well. Because remember this, Jagero, when you come to me and you're going through a particular life crisis, by the time you're leaving, you're feeling much lighter, isn't it? What does that mean? Now that we know energy cannot be dissipated, cannot be transferred, right? So I'm left with that energy. I'm carrying that burden for you, but I'll know how I'll deal with it later. So you see, we have to manage how we are distributing our energy, which also entails our image.
You're now giving me the vibes of a Nigerian.
I've tapped into West Africa. As speaking to another Nigerian here.
Yes.
Now that you're looking like a proper Nigerian.
A lot of people say I look like Nigerian.
Yeah,
and I think this one, they're going to say, ooh.